The SEC is not ready for Vandy to be good consistently.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. On today's episode, I'm going to break down the reasons why the SEC is indeed not ready for a consistently good Vandy team. It's a rising NIL market that Vandy admins are starting to discover. It's becoming a stable program with an establishing culture. There's a lot of factors involved in this. I'm going to break those down here in just a minute. Next, I'm going to be discussing Vandy basketball's updated tournament resume. 3 quad 1 wins. Can they get that bid? I think they can. How's the team and Coach Byington handling all of it? It's kind of funny, actually, Coach Byington with one of his stories. Then we're going to wrap the show by discussing the fact that Vandy may have found an ace, something they lacked a season ago. Cody Bowker is straight dealing, right? So thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is going to be lit, right? So the SEC is not ready, okay? They're just not. And I think a lot of it is because the old, I guess the old way of thinking is, Vandy is just kind of everybody's little brother that they push around and they're never good. And every once in a while when they're good, like people can't handle that, right? And so a lot of that is just that same mindset of, okay, well, Vandy was 2-10 2 seasons ago. Yeah, it's same old Vandy. They've been that way for the last 10 years. Before that, though, they went on a run of they split a decade's worth of games with Tennessee going 5-5. And that kind of just threw everything off kilter. And so people just aren't ready for that, right? The SEC is not ready for that. The Big Ten, I can tell you for sure, is not ready for that because that kind of wrecks their whole argument of, the SEC, they think they're big and bad, but hey, you got Vandy. Well, actually, Vandy's pretty good now. So, but there's a lot of factors in here and why the SEC is not ready for it. And I think Vandy is making that case of, okay, we are actually going to be considered one of the best teams, or not one of the best. We're going to be competitive year in and year out. And it's going to be kind of a regular thing. And a lot of it is centered around NIL. And in the NIL era, I think this benefits a place like Vandy because they're in Nashville. It's an NIL market that will make them competitive regularly. It's a growing market. It's a booming city in general. A lot of people in Nashville want Nashville things to boom, right? When I moved up here back in 2008, it was the start of Preds fever, right? The Nashville Predators hockey team was they were on the rise, and I think in 2010, I believe I'm getting my years crossed up on the Preds, but in 2010 they made a Stanley Cup Finals run, or no, it wasn't 10, it was later on. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but they made a Stanley Cup Finals run, and this city exploded, and the result of this city exploding, the NFL took notice and they said, okay, this city, when they get behind something, they get behind something. And so they brought the draft. And when they brought the draft, I mean, that was kind of the start of the let's have the draft in different host cities instead of just Radio City Music Hall every year. They go around, the new trend is they go around to different NFL cities, and the cities just, I think Nashville still might have been the most successful. I mean, that entire downtown block. I mean, there was places you couldn't even sniff the stage, see the stage, could barely hear the stage. It was crowded. It was packed. They had the NFL experience, the draft experience across the river. They had it set up. I mean, it was top notch all the way around. And Nashville did a phenomenal job with that. And it's just proof that Nashville wants their things to be good. They want you to know that their music scene is the best. All right. And obviously it's debatable depending on what type of music that you like to listen to. If you're a country person, rock and roll, hip hop, whatever, right? Nashville wants to make sure that their music scene is the best. Nashville desperately wants the Titans to be good. They get behind Nashville SC. It's an expansion soccer club that's just okay, but the support they throw behind it, they want them to be good. And this team is overachieved because of that, right? And college football is different. I get that. And I get that there's a lot of transplant fans coming into the city. I get that there's a lot of I get that Nashville is still very much orange. Tennessee is a very much orange state. University of Tennessee still kind of owns this state. Vandy has a chance to turn that around. And I think locally, I know when I go out, I see more Vanderbilt gear, more than I've ever seen. Usually it's orange, the power tee and all that. But I'm starting to see a lot more Vandy stuff. I'm starting to see a lot more people get on the Vandy train. And I think it's a thing that's starting to ignite a little bit in Nashville. And Diego Pavia brought that to the table. So people want to support that. And if Vandy becomes good consistently, Nashville will get behind that and they will turn that stadium more black and gold. And they will make it a point to make sure that it is not a 75, 80% visiting fans, like a home away from home for these teams. Is that possible like that? Probably not. It's probably not going to happen overnight. It's probably not going to happen over the course of a season or two. Vandy's got, this team has got to prove that, hey, we're for real. They've got to do it on the field now. They've added some pieces. They had the continuity coming back. They have a ton of returning production coming back, 9 returning starters on defense. And then I think it's 7 or 8 returning on offense. And it's just astounding. Like, the whole coaching staff is coming back. You add pieces in the scouting department. You add a really good offensive line coach from South Dakota, who I think is probably going to be pushing the buttons and sliding the levers and controlling more than we think he's going to at that position. That guy's going to be special, and he's probably going to bring a transfer with him. Bryce Henderson, it's rumored to be a favorite. He hasn't named his destination yet, but I think it's going to be Vandy. So you got a lot of factors involved here with how this team is going to be really good and why they're going to put themselves on the map. And again, the SEC is just not ready for that yet, right? And when I talk to people and they're just surprised at, like, every time Vandy does something, it's like, oh, they're surprised, and eventually the goal is for people to not be surprised that Vandy wins an SEC game or an SEC game on the road. Like, winning at Auburn was a surprising thing. Winning at Kentucky was a surprising thing. Beating Alabama, well, the magnitude of that. But it's, a lot of these things are people just can't wrap their mind around. This is supposed to be Vandy. And the SEC is just still not ready for that. But in the NIL world, it's a thing. It's possible. That's probably the biggest thing. And the stability, the structure that's in place, I think you're starting to get, some levels of coaches that it's kind of like a coaching pipeline, their own kind of pipeline, to where, somebody leaves or retires, somebody just steps up. I think the coaching restrictions that got lifted, so now you can have pretty much as many people coaching as you want at this point. It's the NFL model. So you got these analysts. You can hire retired coaches in those positions. You can hire young recruiting aces. You can do a multitude of different things with those positions. So it gives you some flexibility. Now Vandy's going to start to get competitive with salaries. They're going to get competitive with NIL so that the cupboard is more full. This is probably the deepest Vanderbilt team this is probably the deepest team that Vanderbilt's had in quite some time. So I'm excited about it. There's a culture that's sustainable now. I think Diego Pavia coming back is huge for that, because I think for this culture to stick, I think that's important. There was some pictures. I don't know if I have the rights to share them. They're on social media if you really want to see it. But the offensive linemen, got out in the snow, some of them shirtless, which is lineman pride. That's a hilarious, great thing for me. Like, those guys are comfortable enough to go shirtless, but they're out there pushing the sled in the snow. It's probably 15 degrees, and they're out there pushing the sled through the snow. Like, some of that might have been for show. I don't know, but like, just the dedication to get out there and get some work done, whether you're doing it for show or not, the work is still probably getting done. On a day where they would normally just be in the dining hall, just chowing down, or in their rooms playing video games, they're out there pushing the sled. If they push the sled for 20 minutes, hell, that's beneficial in and of itself. So that culture is starting to kind of work its way through the system of Vandy football. And this is a very, very, very positive thing that, again, the college football world, the SEC football world, the Big Ten football world is just not ready for. They've got the right staff makeup. They're building in the right direction. Diego Pavia and the leadership crew is doing a hell of a job establishing a culture that I think is sustainable. And, as these things build, then you're going to, when they land their first superstar, then that's when Vandy has hit the map, right? They've got an NFL caliber center coming in, Jordan White from Liberty. He's going to be an NFL caliber guy. Eli Stowers, NFL caliber tight end. I think you've got some homegrown guys. Keanu Coate, I think, will eventually he could eventually play at the next level. He's got to get some snaps in. He didn't get many snaps at Bama, but you don't sign at Bama if you're a terrible football player. So there just could have been some other things that weren't a good fit, but change of scenery can do wonders for people. That's for sure. So, but the SEC ain't ready for it. I can tell you that much. The people out east in Knoxville, they're not ready for it for sure. So I'm hoping that that black and gold flag will be planted in the heart of Nashville on West End, and maybe Vanderbilt can prove that they can sustain it. And if they can prove that, Nashville will back them. They've shown that they will back anything local hardcore, right? It would be hardcore. They only know how to go one speed, and that's 100,000 miles an hour behind something, right? So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. Well, speaking of interesting, Vandy basketball is playing the bubble game with a third quad one win. Are they almost a lock? Well, don't go anywhere. You have to stay on to find out, I guess. Here's what else you can find out. PrizePicks. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. So, if you're building lineups this week, I'm looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Davis for more than 12 rebounds. It's a risky one, but I like it. I love how you can make picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. So, it's quick and easy. You fast payouts and, because when I win, my money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes. So no waiting around to know, hey, am I going to get this money or not? PrizePicks even offers weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where you can get discounted player projections for even more valuable. And there's other promos as well, but Taco Tuesday, we all love Taco Tuesday, right? Why not chow down on some tacos, make some PrizePicks lineups, and feast, right? So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Yo, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. For a second listen, check out Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy. Does a tremendous job of breaking down the best conference in all the land. And that conference who is not going to be used to Vanderbilt being good, right? You can also check out Locked On Ole Miss with Stephen Willis. He is the most watched Ole Miss podcast for a reason. Remember, these podcasts are mostly about perspectives and commentary. Like I don't consider myself a journalist. I'm not going out there digging stories. I'm providing commentary, perspective, and reacting to these things from my eyes and my perspective. So that's what this is all about. And these shows do on this network do a great job of that. So, but we got basketball. Basketball is exciting. Honestly, it's exciting. The big win against Ole Miss, I think that was, that was something that I think I don't want to say threw a lot of things off kilter, but it's certainly thrown a lot of excitement in the whole thing, right? So there is, let's see, there's a lot of bids up for grabs. There is 30 teams that are locks. There's at-large bids available to 37 teams. There are 31 teams available for auto bids for conference tournament champions. So there's a whole equation to this whole thing that Joe Lunardi breaks down. So when you look at the SEC, some things have shifted around. So you have locks. Okay, so these teams are locks: Tennessee, Auburn, Bama, Florida, A&M, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Missouri, and Ole Miss, who Vandy just beat, right? So now teams that should be in, they still got a little bit of work to do, but they should be in. And I think Vandy's right on the cusp of that, right? They got a little bit of work to do. They're kind of in that, last four in type of deal, right? That quad one win against Ole Miss really, really put a number on their chances to get in. This would be a huge deal if they could get in the tournament in Byington's first year, especially with a brand new roster. Not a brand new roster like he came into look, everybody came together at the same time. So this would be even more impressive. So they have about a 58% chance, according to ESPN. They're on the right side of the bubble. Fortunately, as of right now, they just need to keep doing what they're doing. This game against A&M is going to be important. If they can beat A&M on Wednesday, they're in. I think they're in, right? It's been brutal. It's a brutal conference, and it is good. But the mid-30s SOR is palatable. But they just need to collect some more wins. They probably need to make a run in the SEC tournament. But they have Texas, A&M, and Missouri, both top 35 teams in BPI. There's a lot of acronyms here. But they're just going to have to figure some things out, right? They're just going to. And so they are kind of right there on the cusp. They are truly, when you look at bubble teams, you're like, that team's not really a bubble team, but when you look at Vandy, they're truly a bubble team. They're right smack in the middle. They are on they're teetering. If the bubble were to burst, they would be in as of right now. I think you can make a case for them to be in. I don't know where that seeding wise, what that would make them. I think probably 11 would be realistic. So, I think they're going to be in, right? They're going to win I think they're going to get wins against Arkansas and Georgia to close out the season. I think they're going to make it really tough against A&M, really tough against Missouri. Missouri's good, dude. They're legit. And so I think they're going to find ways to kind of figure that out. And so, that these next two games are pretty difficult. They're on the road, and then I think they are home against Missouri, fortunately. So a little Saturday Memorial Magic. That doesn't bode well for Missouri as far as the Saturday Memorial Magic thing goes. But, if they can get a win in the next two, and then if they can get two of the next four, I think it's going to be pretty hard to keep them out. So what's funny is they're getting asked about it. How do how's the question is, how's the team handling it? Right. And they seem to be handling it pretty well. They're starting to kind of gel together. They're starting to kind of, put some things and figure some things out. But there's something that Mark Byington said that I thought was pretty funny. Right. He said, I'll walk down the street. And this quote, I'll walk down the street, I'm going to Starbucks, and somebody will yell at me, "You're the last four in." And he goes on to say, I obviously know what they're talking about, and I usually check it once a week. So, if you think that these people aren't human, and they're not ignoring the noise. He's every bit into the noise. He's checking it. He's probably doing different scenarios and, probably living and dying off every projection and article and things like that. I mean, he's reading it, or he's got people reading it for him and giving him reports and giving him everything he needs to make sure that he knows, is he in? Is he out? What's the deal here? So this is going to be interesting, because you're really going to see in these next 4 games, you're really going to see how this is affecting them. You're really going to see what they're doing to manage all this, because I think honestly part of their second half collapses. I think you could probably, now that I read that quote, you could probably attribute that to a little bit of like panic, tightness, like, oh God, we're going to make the tournament. And a little bit of like not knowing how to handle that situation. Like other teams are like, yeah, we're just playing it out. We're just going to do what we do, and we're going to win. And that's how the good veteran teams play. This team, they've never really been in that situation, individually or collectively. Mark Byington's just kind of been a long shot that went up and won a conference championship and went on a run. But they've never been on this like week to week, because he's never really been in a big situation where he can be like week to week looking at different scenarios. He's never been in that situation. These guys have never probably ever been in that situation, or really had a prominent role as a player in that situation. So, when you're looking at it week to week, game to game, and you're trying to figure out, okay, if we lose this, and you can kind of get lost in the minutia of all that. You can, that can overwhelm you. That can be like an avalanche coming down the mountain. And so, little butthole surfers reference there, but it can consume you. And I think that it has. I think it's zapped some of the focus. I think it's made them do uncharacteristic things as far as turning the ball over, taking bad shots, not communicating on defense, giving up easy buckets, letting teams light them up from behind the arc, and letting the good teams feast, right? So like against Tennessee, the last time they played at Thompson Bowling Arena, they had them on the ropes. They were pummeling them. They had them on the ropes, and they let up. And they let Tennessee get some momentum back. And Tennessee's a really good team, as they were number 1 in the country at one point. Like, they were that for a reason. They are good. They're very streaky. You let them catch fire a little bit, it's going to ignite, and they're just going to run right through you, right? That's what happened against Florida. They played Florida tough, back and forth. Same with Kentucky. Back and forth in the first half. They had those teams kind of discombobulated. Both teams had some injuries. Vandy was taking advantage of it early. Florida found a way to adjust, as did Kentucky. Kentucky went down into the paint and attacked them and wore them out in the paint. And Florida decided, hey, we're just going to have a Steph Curry shooting night and just launch and make 46% of their threes. So it's kind of like a lack of focus, I think, that's happening with all of this portal talk. Listen to me, I'm in portal land with all the bubble talk. So that's a thing. So we'll see Wednesday night when they play A&M. I think that'll be interesting for that. But this is I think they're handling it okay. They can handle it better. So anyway, well, the Vandy boys have found their ace. Who is it? Who is their ace? We'll talk about it next. All right, wrapping up the show, Locked on Vandy. Thank you to the everydayers, gaining subscribers by the minute. So keep it up. Keep this momentum alive. Let's gain subscribers. Let's help me gather some subscribers the way that Vandy plays basketball in the first half of games, not the second half. First half. Well, they're starting to figure some things out second half, so we might be able to be safe to say second half. So anyway. But transitioning over to baseball, because, I think baseball is an important sport on this campus, and I think it's important for Tim Corbin and his crew to be good. And they're a team that finally decided, they're a program that finally decided to turn over some new leaves. New approach in recruiting, new approach to the portal and NIL, new approach in coaching. They made some coaching changes. They welcomed the most transfers they've ever welcomed. And they just got a new way. They're finally saying, okay, we've got to do this. We cannot fight this any longer. If we keep fighting this, it's going to be over for me, and it's going to be over for the program, right? And they're going to take multiple steps back. So that being said, if they didn't go to the transfer portal, guess who's not on campus? Cody Bowker. Guess who's the ace right now? Cody Bowker. He's been an absolute gem for this team. He's been dealing. He threw Sunday against St. Mary's, and I saw some of the clips on social media that Vandy Baseball, the Vandy Boys account. I saw some of that they posted. Holy cow. It was outstanding. He was throwing absolute darts, and it was unbelievable. It was, some of those cutters, sliders, some of the fastballs even had movement. I mean, it was unreal. I was like, good Lord, dude. Like, this guy was at Georgetown last year. Like, what the heck, man? Like, it was outstanding. I mean, you get, Vanderbilt went 5-0 last week at home. Cody Bowker was, his first home start. He threw 5 no-hit shutout innings, struck out 6 to get his first win on the season. He didn't pitch enough innings in the desert to get the win, but he was absolutely brilliant out there too. Struck out a bunch of guys. This dude. His stuff is nasty. Let's just throw that out there, man. You can't, man. It's unreal. But this team, I think, is feeding off of that, right? They're feeding off some of these good pitching performances. They're feeding off of this offense. So baseball's found an ace. How important? So the question is, like, and I know people try to figure these things out, but like, how important is it to have an ace? And to me, and I would love to ask this question to a baseball person, but how important is, I kind of am a baseball person, but somebody who like really follows it. But how important is it to have an ace? Okay. The ace gives you the confidence to say, hey, if we can battle it out, no matter how it goes Friday and Saturday, or even midweek, if we can battle this thing out, squeak out some wins, especially when you get to conference play, we know we got Sunday on lock. Like, that's what having a good ace is. A good ace gives your team confidence that, hey, if we can battle, we can scrap, we can make it to Sunday, we're going to be okay. And all of a sudden, some of the effects of that are now that kind of bleeds into Saturday. Now your Saturday starter's like, hey, well, I can't let down the Sunday guy. I want to deliver him a win going into Sunday. So that's going to naturally elevate the performance of the Saturday starter. Now, in that position for Vanderbilt currently, that's the most question marks right there. That's where you got to see the most improvement, and fast, because McIlvain he's hustling backwards right now, unfortunately. But it's going to elevate the pitching on the other days. It's going to elevate the bullpen. Like, the bullpen's going to come in, and bullpens are volatile just by nature, but you're going to have a bullpen that wants to do well for the starter. They always want to do well for the starter. But if you got an ace that is absolutely just cooking up there, just dealing, then you're going to want to come in. If you come in the 6th, 7th inning, you're going to want to come in laser focused with a great approach on the mound so that you don't disappoint your starter and you shut those guys down. Because more than likely, when you have a starter that's just absolutely wheeling and dealing, your hitters, and it's not on purpose, it's just they get a little bit more relaxed. And I think sometimes when you get a little bit more relaxed, the production does decrease slightly. So the run support for these aces are probably not as high consistently, because you get that comfort level of, oh, we can just relax a little bit. But those guys are super focused on Saturday, Friday, and then even into midweek because they know they have to do more of the heavy lifting. Now, the Braves were unbelievable. They had 4 aces in Major League standards. But, if you have a team that can have multiple aces, like your Saturday and Sunday guy can have our aces, then you're going to be a really good team. So Vandy, I think, is well on its way. They've got, it seems like as of right now, February 25th, 2025, they've got Sunday figured out. And they're going to be all right on Sunday. Now they got to get Saturday figured out for sure. Friday's kind of up and down, but for the most part, I think they've got it. I think they've got a guy they like. He just needs innings, right? So it's going to be interesting. And the offense, the power is going to rise every week to week as it gets warmer. Your power hitting is going to improve as it gets warmer. As long as you're driving the baseball now when it's cold, like I said, those hits will start to find their way into gaps. They'll start to carry further. They'll start to go out of the park more, all that stuff. So I'm excited about this team, but the point is they found an ace. You start there and you just go. And they found an ace closer too, Hawks. Hawks is a great closer. He's been brilliant as well. So they've got that pretty much figured out. So they just really got to get the middle relief guys on a consistent basis. They really got to figure out Saturday and somewhat Sunday or somewhat Friday. So anyway, well, that's all I got. Looking forward to taking you on this journey of Vanderbilt athletics. It's going to be fun for basketball, going to be fun for baseball. And in 2025, it's going to be fun for football when the fall rolls around. So I'm excited. You should be too. Tell a friend, subscribe, like, all that good stuff at Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms. We'll see you back here next time. Locked On Vandy on the Locked On Podcast Network. Anchor down and peace.